All right, good evening, everyone, and we will get started with the recording here in just a moment. I forgot to do something else. You know, if I had brains, I'd be really dangerous. Let me tell you something. I'd be really, really dangerous if I had some brains. But I don't. So there you go. I'm trying to get one thing figured out here before I start, which I should have done completely just screwed the pooch on that one. Anyway, let's get the recording going, and then we shall proceed with the Liberty Talk.
The Constitution isn't just a document. It's a blueprint for freedom. We're breaking down politics at every level, exposing government overreach, and going where the mainstream media surely won't. Join us in defending individual rights against the bureaucratic tide. You're listening to the Missouri Liberty Report.
And good evening, and welcome back to another edition of a rock and roll death metal version. Not really. Sounded cool. Imagine if we did a death metal version of the Missouri Liberty Report. Most people would drop right out after viewing for about, I don't know, 2 minutes. But anyway, so welcome back. It's the May Legislative Review with Tom Martz. Catherine Dreyer normally joins us, but she had other things going on. So tonight it's just myself, Brandon, and Tom Martz. And we've got a few bills that we want to look at as far as this is the last month of the regular session. Now, sometimes the governor can call for a special session if there's things that the executive branch wants to get done here in Missouri. But anyway, so let's bring up Tom. Tom, good evening, sir. Nice to have you back.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Okay, before we even go any farther, Tom, I guess I want to ask you a question. Do you, even though this is the last month of the normal legislative session, do you want to keep continuing to come on anyway the first of the month? I mean, just every month out of the year. It doesn't matter to me. There's always things to talk about. I'll leave it up to you. If you want to continue to do the first Tuesday of every month, regardless if the legislature is in session or not, I'm cool with that.
Well, it's your show, or I should say, well, now it's your and Brandon's show. So if you want me on, I will, and if not, then I'll just disappear.
Well, screw you then, Tom. Good
then
day.
This is consider this my formal invitation. Then I would love it.
Okay.
I love having you on.
Then,
Always a good time. Yes.
Then we'll do something on the first Tuesday of the month. It may not be legislative review. Maybe we'll all rock out to a heavy metal band or something.
So just for everybody else to know, because I don't have enough screens in my office to set up. I attempted for the first time tonight to also stream to TikTok. Normally used to have to have so many followers to do it, and somehow I got on. So we are now on YouTube, Rumble, and TikTok. This was just like a thing I wanted to try out. And so far, so good. I can't see my screen, which is good because I don't want to see my ugly mug on another screen. But so far, it seems to be up and running, and we're going. But anyway, yeah, so let's do that. First Tuesday of every month, we will continue to have Tom Martz on. And we may not be able to call it the legislative review show, but we can do something. We can speak to the state constitution. We can talk about just dumb things that go on in Missouri and what have you, and just continue it. I feel like it would be better to do it that way. It's nice to have a guest on with us every so often, and it kind of just breaks up the monotony a little bit and adds a little bit of the old Marxisms and Mart's spiciness to the show. So let's continue to do that. But Brandon, you wanted to say something, brother?
Oh, I just I was going to ask you if us going on TikTok is our formal endorsement of the People's Republic of China.
I think
Just
it
wanted
is.
to-
Yes, I think it
Okay.
is. I think
Okay.
we have officially joined the CCP, and
Yeah.
now I just have to go and get my red armband and wear it around, and I have to get a sickle, and or whatever, a hammer, sickle, whatever I need to be an official member of the CCP, and maybe we'll make some of that Chi-Com money, and I'll just be able to quit my 9-to-5 job. That probably won't happen, but still.
You know, I remember on the House floor not long ago, they were telling us that TikTok was a threat to democracy and all of our data is being stolen by the Chinese. So I just wanted to clarify that when we're all streaming on TikTok, we are in full support. Okay.
True. All right. So, go ahead, Tom.
Let's get this straight. It is the PRC. It is the People's Republic of China, not the CCP. That's Russia.
Oh. Really?
Yes.
I thought the CC. Okay, so I guess are you screwing with me right now?
I thought
Brad?
it was the Chinese Communist
No,
Party.
Or Tom?
it's the People's Republic of China, the PRC.
Yes, I know, but they also talk about the CCP, which is the
Chinese Communist Party. I thought.
Chinese Communist Party.
Oh, okay.
See, now
6 in one, half dozen in the other.
I thought, boy, I've completely lost my mind, and now I need to just shut the show off and just say I'm no longer podcasting because I've been wrong I've been wrong a lot in my life, but this seems like something really bad to be off about. All right. So we've got a few bills here that we want to discuss, and the first one we're going to get into is House Bill 1072. That is Justin Sparks' bill. And when I looked at it on its face, I thought, what are we doing here? What? Okay, again, folks, I'm not a fan of abortion. I guess I'm going to preface this whole thing with that. I'm not a fan of abortion, right? I don't like it, don't agree with it. But so it's in our Constitution. I saw Sparks's 1072, and, part of it's called the Missouri Prenatal Equal Protection Act, all of these things. So I thought, what is his point behind trying to push this bill through? I thought, if it goes through, somebody's going to challenge it in the court. The court's probably going to have a dissenting opinion on it, and it's going to cost taxpayer money to go through the whole shebang, and all for naught. But talking to Tom before the show, Tom enlightened me a little bit on maybe what the pathway was, because this bill never even made it out of committee. I think it failed 2-5, I believe was the number that I saw. So, but Tom, if you want to lay out what you think his goal behind this piece of legislation was.
Well, let me read where I think it is that he's going. Now, I could be completely off my rocker, but based on my reading of this piece of legislation, I think this is where he's going. Amendment 14 of the U.S. Constitution, Section 1, states all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of laws. And the reason I say he's going that way is because if you read the title of the bill, it says to repeal Section 541, 562, 563, 565, revised statute Missouri, and to enact in lieu thereof 5 new sections relating to equal protection with a referendum clause. Then in subsection 2 of 1.2 207 RSMO. This is the Missouri Prenatal Equal Protection Act. He specifically states to acknowledge the Constitution of the United States as overriding anything in the Constitution of this state, contrary to it, as it provides, this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding, to follow the Constitution of the United States, which requires that no state shall deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of laws. Then if you go down further into the bill, it takes, where did I see this at? Somewhere it defined person in 565.002, line 24 and 25. Person is defined includes a human being, including an unborn child at every stage of development from the moment of fertilization until birth. If I had to bet money on this, it is my thought process and my thought process only that Representative Sparks is attempting to pertains to the unborn at the point of conception, and therefore Article 1, Section 36 or 37, whichever it is in the state constitution, under the rights and privileges section, would then be null and void.
Okay.
That is my belief based on the way I'm reading this. I honestly think that is the direction. I'm not saying I agree with it either, but I think this is the direction that he's heading off in.
Okay.
He wants this to go to court. He wants this in front of the black robes, and he wants the black robes to make it so that the 14th Amendment applies to the child at conception. Therefore, the 14th Amendment would reign supreme. That is what I believe he's doing.
So I guess my first question would be for you, Tom, is what is your prediction? Like, if let's say this passes in the Missouri House and the governor signs it, what do you think that it would have withstood the courts? Or do you think, like, all the way up to the United States Supreme Court, do you think it would have held? Or do you think has there been any other case like this that we've seen in another state?
No, there hasn't. And I don't think, in all sincerity, I don't think it would ever get to the governor's desk. The Democrats would filibuster it in the Senate, and that's pretty much where it would go to die, because they would never PQ it on the Senate side. But it is, in my opinion, it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting way of trying to get something into the judicial system. I'm just not so sure how far it would go, because you and I, all three of us, I do believe, agree that a state statute does not overrule the state constitution. However, what he's attempting to do, if I'm reading this correctly, is that he's trying to make it so that this state law would then be taken to court. The court would, and whoever's going to argue it would then argue the 14th Amendment, and then it would be the federal government who would make the case, because of the 14th Amendment, that they are to protect and to secure the rights of the unborn at the moment of conception.
Okay. I mean,
I think it's an interesting concept.
it's a very interesting concept, and it's one that I had not even clearly hadn't thought of because, again, like I said, when I saw it, I thought, what? I mean, I thought this is going to go to court, and knowing how the black robes normally rule, seemingly without any uh, knowledge of the Constitution of the state or the federal or the U.S. Constitution, I thought this just seemingly looks like it wouldn't go anywhere at all. But again, as you said, it is a very interesting um, tactic to try to actually get this bill into the courts and I mean, again, it could create some national headlines, depending on it. I'm sure if anything having to do with abortion in the state, the media generally picks up on it and tries to put their politically biased slant on it. So it would be an interesting um, uh, kind of experiment. Experiment's not the right word, but it would be interesting to see how these things would turn out in a court of law and how these generally unconstitutional minded black robe wearing fools would what side of this they would fall on if they would take it up and give it consideration for what he's seemingly attempting to do, or if they would just say, well, that's not what the founders meant, or things have changed and so on and so forth. So it's hard to say what could happen here.
Well, if you go back to the original intent of the 14th was to make it so. Now, I don't agree with the application that you're a citizen of the United States, because to my way of thinking, I was born a Marylander. I grew up a Pennsylvanian. I just happen to now be a Missourian. My allegiance is not to the country per se; it's more to the state. And it infuriates me that you have an amendment where you're a United States citizen when in reality, the 13 colonies created the federal government. Now, all of a sudden, the federal government, based on the fact that the states passed this or the people passed this, that the United States has now given itself the supremacy of the jurisdiction. And I also agree with Trump that just because you have a baby over here does not make it a United States citizen, because of the fact that, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, does not apply to people who come over here to drop off a child or to download the uterus to create a U.S. citizen. That's not the way that works. But with Sparks's bill, I would also be curious where that goes, because you do have people that are natural born. You have people that are naturalized. You have people that are citizens simply because they were born here and their parents were naturalized, or they were born here and their parents went through the naturalization process. But I wonder how this, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, would play out for people who came across the border, came to Missouri, decided that they wanted an abortion, and they said, no, you can't, because the 14th Amendment applies. But then again, the 14th Amendment, based on the way that people believe the Supreme Court, what they say goes, all of a sudden that would be the supreme law of the land. If it got that far and it went to the way that I think Justin Sparks is wanting this to go, that would be the law of the land. The 14th Amendment would apply to all children at the conception phase.
So
Okay.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but didn't the Supreme Court rule not long ago on whether birthright citizenship is constitutional, or is
I don't
that
know.
am I misremembering?
I have not been following the opinions of the Supreme Court, although I do know that if you go back to, they always use Ark v. Wong as the case, but the parents of Ark v. Wong were subject to the jurisdiction of, and somehow people have taken that completely out of context to mean, it wasn't until like the 70s, I think, that all of a sudden, simply because you came over here and birthed out a baby, that they were U.S. citizens. That didn't used to apply. At some point in time, the progressives said, hey, we have a new voting block. If a couple come over from France and they download a kid in Arizona, that makes that kid a U.S. citizen. That's not the way that was supposed to work.
Right. Because what you definitely couldn't have is Justin Sparks' version of the 14th Amendment and the extension thereof, birthright citizenship, because then it would be, you could have just been conceived in America. You don't even have to have been born, which would be even more, should be an even deeper well. That's an even crazier concept to think of. Yeah.
See, that's the way to use your head right there. Think outside the box.
No, this is just my opinion, and I'm jaded, and I know I'm very biased, so I'll preface it with that. But I just think once you had the constitutional amendment that was voted on, it was about the ballot initiative that was voted on. And so if you're not even sure if this is going to make it out of the state, out of the Missouri Supreme Court, because there's so many different ways to challenge that part of the bill. I don't know. It almost seems like they're doing it for publicity, to rally the base, kind of like I don't know. That's just my opinion on it. Because wouldn't you just pass something to get a new referendum on the ballot to kind of undo it? Wouldn't that be like the constitutional?
Why does he keep dropping out?
That should be the way that it is done, is to provide another amendment to the amendment. But part of our issue is that, and I know many people are going to disagree with me, but as soon as Jay Ashcroft signed his name on that dotted line and said this meets all the requirements to go to the ballot, he completely screwed anybody who was of the thinking that the unborn child needs to be, the unborn child has rights and it is to be protected.
Yeah, I'm sorry. For some reason, Brandon just dropped.
It's TikTok.
No, it did it before I even started to stream earlier.
Well, that's because you were looking at going on TikTok. See, it's the CCP.
It's the CCP, yeah. So hopefully I can get him back on here. He dropped out a minute ago, and then I picked it back up. I am this collab cam thing on Streamlabs appears to be busted all to hell, and I'm about sick and tired of it. And so I told him, because, Streamlabs is nice because it's like, oh, you got this collab cam, everything else. You can multi-stream, you can set up multiple streams and everything else. For what I'm paying a month to use it, to have that multi-streaming ability, and then it does this kind of nonsense, not a fan. Not a fan
Dude,
at all.
look at where you live. It's not like that you have the essence of fabulous internet service up there. And if you do, I apologize for being so backwards to think you bunch of hicks would have really good internet.
Actually, we have fiber optic.
Ooh.
So yeah, we have fiber optic, and we can get up to 1 gig speed. So take that, yeah.
Man, you guys are moving up in the world. So, are they building a new Dollar Tree yet up there?
Oh, we already have one. We have a Family Dollar and a Dollar Tree all in the same building. So again, take that, you.
Very cool. Well, I know you have a Walmart.
Yeah, we do have that.
You have that right up there, 2819. You got a McDonald's. I've never realistically driven past the McDonald's because I always turn left to head down there towards
Cuba.
Cuba.
Yep. Let's see if we can get Brandon back on here now. I apologize to all of you out there watching on live streams, wherever you're watching at, because yeah. See, everything was going fine, and then Microsoft decides, oh, we don't want to do Skype anymore. Okay, here we go. All right, now he's back again. Anything else you want to add, Brandon, since you last dropped out?
Audio good?
Yep, audio's great.
Okay.
I don't know what happened.
And I'm not saying they're not passionate about it or that they don't believe in this cause. Like I just think given the political timing on it, trying to get something done this way just seems more of like an appeal to the base than like you're actually trying to end abortion. That's just my opinion.
Oh, trust me, it is. I mean, if you think something's going to get over the finish line, of course, they'll always blame it on leadership. But if you think it can get voted out of the House and into the Senate and out of the Senate and to the governor's desk before they adjourn, it would be filibustered in the Senate, and that's where it would die.
Right. So, again, I just wish they'd spend more time trying to lower taxes and end bureaucracy versus fighting losing battles, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
you won't get any argument out of me.
Well, and again, that's my concern. That was my concern. Was how much taxpayer money is going to be wasted? Sounds like a bad word, because again, I don't agree with abortion, but how much money, how much time is going to be spent trying to get the twisted heads at the Missouri Supreme Court or whatever court to try to side the 14th Amendment, all these different things, trying to get persuade them to say, see, that we're just strictly upholding the U.S. Constitution here or whatever. And again, it's an interesting tactic. I find it kind of cool, but at the same point, it's like, I don't know. Like I said, it seems like we maybe have other battles that could be fought and actually are winnable. Now, I want to bring this bill up here. Let me see. Where'd he go? How did I not bring the right bill up? Okay. Nope. Is it House Bill 1175? Is that the SAPA that got through all the way to?
Yes.
Okay. Speaking of, court opinions who have screwed things over. Let's talk about HB 1175. I know for what they're calling basically the new SAPA bill, there was a Senate version and there was a House version, and I think the House version was looked upon more favorably, if I'm not mistaken. And people said, let's get the House bill done, not the Senate bill done. There was some differences in the language, which I can't even remember now. But yes, I am absolutely shocked that this made it through the House and the Senate, back to the House, and is going to the governor's desk, and we'll see if the governor will actually sign it or not. I'm sorry. I'm sitting here. I wanted to go over the gold and silver bill. I think I'm rambling on. 1175 is
SAPA.
SAPA. And I wanted to go into gold and silver, not SAPA. I'm on another planet tonight.
Well, let's do SAPA since I have it pulled up,
Okay,
because I can
that's
see
fine.
I can see a huge problem in 1.451, which is on page 3 of the bill. It goes on to state that now granted, keep in mind, and I know, John, you agree with me 100%, we shouldn't have to have a freaking SAPA bill.
Right.
When these people swear the oath to the Constitution, they swear the oath that they are not going to violate the rights of the people, which also means their firearms. But 1.451 says no public officer or employee of this state or any political subdivision of this state shall have the authority to enforce or attempt to enforce any federal acts, laws, executive orders, administrative orders, rules, regulations, statutes, or ordinances regarding firearms, firearm accessories, or ammunition against law-abiding citizens. Nothing in this section 1.451 to 1.484 shall be construed to prohibit Missouri officials from accepting aid from federal officials in an attempt to enforce Missouri laws. The problem with this is when you use the term regarding firearms, because there are things that do occur, like if a school has a rifle team. So let's say the rifle team is allotted, I don't know, somebody grants them the availability to go down and have 15 new rifles. Well, if you read 1.451, if a law enforcement officer goes down to pick these up, to transport them to school, to hand them to the kids on the rifle team, he's in violation of 1.451 because it's regarding firearms. It doesn't discuss anything about the rights of the citizens. It specifically states that they try to enforce any federal acts, laws, executive orders, administrative orders, rules, regulations, statutes, or ordinances regarding firearms, firearm accessories, or ammunition against law-abiding citizens. You know, you realistically can have some federal acts and you can have some laws that are involving firearms that do nothing to infringe upon the rights of the people and their firearms.
Right.
So to leave such a broad definition in here is opening yourself up once more to seeing this subverted.
It's a shame that I don't know. I thought they were trying to push the courts to revisit the original SAPA, or the Supreme Court of the U.S. to revisit, or actually not even revisit, to just make a judgment on it. And did they give up on it? I haven't heard a whole lot. And so now here we are with this version of SAPA. I don't know.
Well, you know, it's almost like that they can't. They need to put more bling into something. So if they buy a hat, they need to do something to the hat before they put it on their head. So they go down and they get little rhinestones and they add a little bling to it. I mean, if they would just do what it is that they said that they were attempting to do. And I have not watched Ron Calzone's video yet. He did I guess 11, 12, 13 minute something video that you can find on Rumble, and I shared it on my Rumble account on the Lock and Smith Foundation side. But, you know, I don't know where he went with it, but if we're of the thought process that simply because Trump is president that, you know, we can just ignore this completely, I think that's the wrong way to go too.
I've stated this several times that, you know, Missouri's generally been for the last several years Republican majority in the House and the Senate. Whether it's a majority, sometimes they've held a super majority, but their actions seemingly hinge on who's in the White House. Instead of saying, "Listen, we want," again, instead of having a state mind, right? We're trying to do what we need to do for what's best for the state of Missouri and its people and freedom and liberty. Their decision making hinges on, okay, there's two states of mind to me. It's we have to show off and pound our chest, and then if there's a Republican in the White House, we have to do our best to kiss his butt. And when we put things on social media, we have to say how much we love whatever, you know, if it's Trump, we have to show how much we love Trump. You know, if you're Comrade Schroer and some of these other guys, they have to seemingly just go out of their way every day to say how much they love Trump. Then on the other side, now if Biden's in there, then you'll see more bills that are supposedly, oh, we have to fight against the Biden administration and do this here in Missouri, even though the bill will end up unconstitutional most of the time and it will be useless. They have to show all this bluster and they have all this bravado when there's a Democrat in office. But when there's a Republican in office, then a lot of that rhetoric dies down. And, yeah, they tend to forget that, hey, 4 years from now, a Democrat could be in office. So why don't we work on freedom and liberty in the state? Forget about who's in the White House. I mean, you have to pay attention, but instead of operating by who's in the White House, how about operating on the principle of following the Constitution, expanding freedom and liberty in the state, and we'll just work on that regardless of who's in the White House, because we know that the political pendulum swings back and forth. It swings left to right. Every so many years, it swings to the left and it swings back to the right because seemingly the nation is bipolar or something. I don't know. And I just wish they'd kind of work off of that premise, that instead of thinking, well, Republicans are just going to win from here on out and it's going to be kittens and rainbows. What was that? Was it Waylon Jennings song or something, that we'll all be drinking that green bubble up and eating that rainbow stew, making fun of Jimmy Carter. But it just seems like that if they would just work on the basis of freedom and liberty instead of kowtowing to some Republican governor or president, and work on the concept of, hey, we were supposed to be elected to uphold and defend the Constitution. I don't know. Maybe we get more things done, but I don't know. In the situation we're living in now, I have a lot of doubt about that.
I just think you don't need, to Tom's point, you don't need the unnecessary language. It could be a very simply stated bill. It's just under Missouri law, none of our agencies or any member of the state will aid a federal officer in an attempt to subvert your Second Amendment rights under the United States Constitution, and the penalties are listed as such. And it could be that simple. And then if they take it to court and it loses, it was going to lose anyway, because that's all you need is something that simple. It doesn't have to tie it into Missouri laws or Missouri statutes, because the Second Amendment, if it's the Second Amendment that they're talking about, they're trying to protect in the title of the bill, it's pretty clear that the rights of it's the right of the people to keep and bear arms. And so, again, you just don't need, I don't know if it was in this bill, because I was trying to read through a second ago and find it. I know we've talked about it on the show a lot. It's the part where it says only subject to the limitations of the Second Amendment and Missouri law restricting guns, restricting and their firearm restrictions.
That is crossed out in this bill.
Right. So that's in the crossed out part.
Yeah,
Right.
thank God they crossed that out, because that was one of the big problems with the other bill that we had last time. The other bill had that in there as if to say, well, because the people of Missouri have vested the General Assembly with authority to regulate the manufacture, possession, exchange, and use of firearms within the borders of this state, subject only to the limits imposed by Amendment 2 of the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Missouri. And it was like,
Right.
what are you talking about, you freakazoids?
No, but the language in this current bill, as read by Tom a minute ago, could almost be construed as something very similar. It says, but it doesn't apply if it's talking about Missouri law. Wink.
Yeah,
Like,
that
you
is a
know,
problem. When I had
manufacturing weapons and things like that.
I want to say, I don't remember if it was Representative Taylor, who the first version of SAPA was proposed, and they're working on it. He just disappeared again. I swear to God, it just dropped him again. I am going to lose my ever loving mind. But when I had him on, and somebody in the live stream's like, hey, now he's back. Okay, now I'm confused. Anyway, somebody said, well, can we have full autos? And he's like, well, no, because of the supremacy clause, you can't. And people were like, okay, so this guy doesn't understand constitutionality either. Great. So, yeah, even the people who wrote the original SAPA had good intent, right? They were like, okay, we don't want to help the feds enforce unconstitutional federal, gun laws. But at the same point, they were like, well, there is a supremacy clause. So basically saying that the federal government's laws supersede those of the state, whether they're unconstitutional or not. And I'm like, now you're splitting hairs, and now you got things. Now you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth. Highly confusing. Again, I appreciate the intent and the effort behind the bill, but yes, as Tom so eloquently stated, too much bling in the bill, and it's apparently causing issues at other junctures. Anything else you want to add about this, Tom?
Well, page 3, subsection 9, they did bring back the people of Missouri have vested the General Assembly with the authority to regulate the manufacture, possession, exchange, and use of firearms within the borders of this state, subject only to the limits imposed by Amendment 2, of which there are. The only limit there is the federal government has hands off of the imposed by Amendment 2 of the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Missouri. Now, they didn't specifically say Article 1, Section 23, but it also says in Article 1, Section 23, hands off, except for the General Assembly has the authority to adjudicate red flag laws for people who are violent felons or have been adjudicated by the court to be a danger to themselves or others.
Okay, yeah, you're okay. I was looking at, I guess, the first edition of the bill. This is probably this is perfected with amendment. Okay, so they slipped it back. They slipped it back in. God bless.
Yeah,
America.
The introduced version did not have it at all. And that's the way I liked it.
And now it's back in.
But I think what they're doing is they're making it so that they're basically telling the federal government that the people did not vest you with any authority to regulate firearms. That's a 10th Amendment issue. And the people of the state of Missouri, by the confines of the state constitution, Article 1, Section 23, even though that they say that the people have vested them with the authority to regulate the manufacture, possession, exchange, and use of firearms, not if you read Article 1, Section 23. They did not. So they've granted themselves the authority and then exempted that authority because they're pointing to the area where the people have said, no, you don't have the authority to do this.
Okay. Do you think that can be to me, that seems like it can be misinterpreted.
I think it's just like Sparks's bill. Unless you sit there and you read it over and over and over again, and you think of the different ways that this can be used. Now, granted, I don't believe for a second that the courts would read that and go, well, Article 1, Section 23 says that the General Assembly doesn't have any of this authority, and you won't find any of this authority in Article 1, Section, or in Amendment 2 either. Therefore, all this language is null and void. I mean, the way I'm looking at it is the state of Missouri is taking their 10th Amendment to supersede federal acts that are null and void. Meanwhile, they've also used the state constitution to proclaim what they just did, vesting themselves the authority to do this by the 10th Amendment, made it null and void by the state constitution. Do I believe a judge could go that far in depth in thinking this way? No.
No, that's my concern. It's not
mine too.
It's not the General Assembly. It's not the people per se. It's the freaking courts. That's what scares me about language like that, is they see that, and I don't know. These people think they have carte blanche to make all kinds of decisions, and they can shut down anything they want. It's like, the people have been led to believe that, and too many government officials have kind of given over to that mentality, but it's like, you really don't. You're there as an interpreter, not even, you're just supposed to know the Constitution and then rule and give an opinion based on constitutionality, not political bias or whatever else comes around. But, I mean, I don't know if this... I didn't see how far. So it's okay. So now it is SS offered in the Senate as of today. So it'll still have to go over back to the House and pass through the House again. And I'm not real up on my acronyms. What is SS?
Senate substitute.
Senate substitute. Okay. So yeah, if it does pass the Senate and goes back to the House, I do wonder if it'll make it through the House in the short remaining time they have for session, or are they going to be much more worried about omnibus bills that they need to cram through there? But because that's generally what they love more. They love their omnibus bills more than a single subject bill. That's boring crap. We have to take a bill and cram it full of 14 other bills that don't go along with anything, and then
got to keep the gravy train rolling,
yeah,
John.
and then got to pat ourselves on the back like we get a good American job. Okay.
Well, that's for the lobbyists. The lobbyists then come give them the old attaboy.
That's true. Okay, well, then let's move over to... Actually, before we go to the gold and silver, there was House Bill 176, which is... so certain sections are to be cited as the Missouri Electronic Wills and Electronic Estate Planning Documents Act. Tom, I know you know more about this than I do. Take us through this bill. And then I've got some audio from Bryant Wolfen on the House floor as he was asking about certain sections of the Constitution and how, if this bill is actually constitutional or not. Take us through this.
Well, play his audio first.
Okay.
That way I can lay this out
All right,
afterwards.
I'll cue it up here real quick.
Genevieve.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To speak on the amendment, please.
Proceed, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So now we've had probably about 25 minutes of deliberation on this bill, and now all of a sudden it went from everybody seeming like it was going to be a no to all of a sudden, well, this bill's probably not so bad. We've heard this and listened to us upperclassmen, and it should be fine. That's bad government. We came here to promote good government. We came here to be stewards to the people of Missouri, and I cannot fathom the people of Missouri would be okay with us passing something that we don't know what's in it. There's no way we've had time to not only read, maybe at this point a quick reader has probably read all 81 pages, but there's no way to determine what this is going to do in existing law, unless you're in the Judicial Committee, I guess, if you would, you could say. So, but Mr. Speaker, could I inquire of the gentleman from, my apologies, the Black District, the amendment to the amendment maker.
Is the
please.
gentleman from Webster, yes. Will the gentleman
Webster,
from Webster
thank you.
yield from a microphone other than your own?
I certainly will, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Proceed.
Thank you, gentlemen. I did, I know your profession, and I know you know the Constitution quite well, and I just wanted to see how you thought this amendment applied. So in Article 3, Section 21 of the state constitution, it does say that no law shall be passed except by bill, and that no bill shall be amended in its passage through either house as to change its original purpose. Now, admittedly, I just said there's no time for me to determine what's in this amendment. Do you think this amendment changes this bill's original purpose of estate planning, or what's your thoughts on that, sir?
My thought on that is, and it's very common in our procedure, if a bill is to be changed with regard to subject matter, the appropriate way to do that, gentlemen, is to change the title.
Excuse me, gentlemen. I believe the gentleman from St. Genevieve is struggling to hear. Can we have some order in the room, or take your conversations to the hallway, please?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
As I'm sure you heard, gentlemen, we changed the title. I believe that perfectly responds to your concern.
Okay, so the original purpose of the bill was estate planning. Now, I know we changed the title here. So does that only correlate, or does that only matter once we pass it out of this House? It can't be amended, or out of this body, excuse me. So the original purpose, does it only matter if it continues on past this process?
At this point, gentlemen, I believe the term original purpose means the purpose is defined when the bill is adopted. We have changed the purpose as indicated to make basically civil procedures, and so I believe the Constitution is satisfied.
Okay, well, I appreciate your wisdom, and I knew you're very good on that topic, so thank you for that, and thanks for the inquiry. To continue speaking on the amendment, sir, or Mr. Speaker?
Proceed, gentlemen.
Thank you. I appreciate the gentleman's comments and for clarifying that up for me, especially on the House on a whim, so thank you for that again, sir. And I just want to once again reiterate, 81 pages, roughly 20 minutes to determine what's in it, and what I guess the old saying goes, let's pass it. We have to pass it to see what's in it.
All right, so there's Mr. Wolfen's comments on HB. Let me get this bill right. 176, I believe. Let me make sure. Yep, HB 176. Brandon has disappeared again. I don't understand why. I don't know what's going on. Anyway,
No.
but you're back.
Okay.
It is
All right.
your webcam on the live stream keeps falling off, and I'm about ready to punch my screen. But anyway, so you heard those comments from Representative Wolfen. Earlier, I pulled up the original bill, and let me do this one more time. I'm gonna pull up the original bill, and I want to look at it because the original bill is 6 pages. 6 pages.
What?
The perfected bill in the House is. Well, I see here it's actually 98 pages because they've got a bunch of stuff that they've crossed out. So it went from 9 pages to 98 pages. Tom, lay it out for us, brother.
Okay. House Bill 176, as originally titled, was adding 13 new sections relating to electronic estate planning. Now, if you go to Article 3, Section 23, the state constitution is specific. It says no bill shall contain more than one subject which shall be clearly expressed in its title. So based on that, we can go back to this bill. It contains one subject, which is electronic estate planning. I think we can also agree that electronic estate planning is pretty darn specific on what the intent of the piece of legislation is.
Absolutely.
Then it was perfected. Now all of a sudden, we are enacting in lieu thereof 115 new sections relating to civil jurisprudence. Now, somewhere in this 98 pieces or 98 pages, I'm betting that you're still going to find estate planning. But here's the first change they've made right off the top. It deals with, it's Revised Statute Missouri 193265, and it is about no fee shall be required or collected for a certification of birth, death, or marriage if the request for certification is made by a prosecuting attorney, a circuit attorney, or attorney general. Are we still within the parameters of estate planning?
Doesn't seem so.
Not really. You could make a vague argument, but because like the death certificate is, but that's just relating to death. That's not, doesn't have anything to do with estate planning. So no.
Now the second change they're adding is it has to do with when an injured employee receives an award for permanent total disability, but by the use of glasses, prosthetic appliances, or physical rehabilitation, the employee is restored to his or her regular work or is equivalent, the lifetime payment mentioned in subsection 1 of this section shall be suspended during the time in which the employee is restored to his or her regular work or its equivalent. See, this person's not even dead. So we can't make the case that it's about estate planning anymore.
They're still alive.
As far as I know, estate planning is done by people who are alive that are trying to figure out a way to pass as many of their proceeds onto their children or a relative or a friend without the government getting involved in it. And I didn't read anywhere where the injured employee was giving his glasses or his prosthetic appliances or any of his physical rehabilitation to anyone after his death.
I really wish I had if I'd have been thinking more and I had more time, I would have queued up that audio from Monty Python, Search for the Holy Grail or whatever it's called, where the guy's like, "Bring out your dead, alms for your dead," and this guy's hauling out his dad, and his dad's not dead yet. He's like, "Oh, he'll be dead in a little bit." It's just like, I could cue that up for this. That would have worked out perfectly. Jeez Louise.
Well, I remember Tom saying a few weeks or a couple months back that you can tell if a bill is going to violate Article 3, Section 23, if it's got more than one section in the title. And this bill has 193, 214, 287, 255. Oh, missed 347, 469, 477, 488, 509, 537, and 621. So you can just assume off the bat, like I already knew it's going to violate Article 3, Section 23. based on Tom's eye test alone. Because you can't cover that many sections of the Constitution and still be talking about one subject. It's impossible.
Well, if you go to section 21 in Article 3, the very last sentence of it says, every bill shall be read by title on 3 different days in each house. So how do we know what the original purpose of the bill is? The original purpose is when it's first read, and it was about electronic estate planning. What Representative Black from Webster County is trying to make the case of is that because they are the government at any point in time can change the title, say it's the original title, therefore it is the original title. So it doesn't make a difference that this piece of legislation was introduced about estate or electronic estate planning, because they've changed the title into civil jurisprudence, which now opens it up to anything that's relating to the court system. I'm sorry, the government, no matter what, you do not get to amend something and still refer back to it as the original. If you are born John Williams and then you are adopted, then the government will say, well, we're going to give you your original birth certificate. It's no longer John Williams, it's John Beebe. Well, wait a minute, that wasn't the original. Only the government gets to say it's original. Your original birth certificate is the one that was printed when your bio mom and your bio dad, or whichever was there at the time, gave you a name and said, this is the name that we agree to. That's the original birth certificate. If you were to get adopted later in life, only the government can change bio mom and bio dad off an official government document and proclaim that, well, no, just because bio dad's no longer in the picture, we've created the application where this new guy is bio dad. That's not an amendment. It's still the original birth certificate. I call BS on that. That's the progressive way of thinking. The original title, as it is stated, is electronic estate planning. Everything in that piece of legislation, from the time it gets out of committee, has to maintain electronic estate planning. Anything over and above that is a violation of Article 3, Section 21, and Article 3, Section 23. Now you know why I'll never be elected to be a House representative.
Why were you basically hinting that these bills are trans?
Yes.
They're pretending to be one thing when they're really another.
Oh my God.
Well, they might be, according to, which is it, Kourtney Kardashian, who said she's autosexual.
I can't keep up. Hey, you guys want to hear?
That's a new one.
Here, I got something funny for you. Okay, and I love my kids to death, and fortunately for me, they have my kind of dark and twisted sense of humor. So the other day, we went to Rolla, and we went into Academy Sports, and we went to go look at some firearms. And when I got in there, I told my kids, I said, well, I'm going to go back and look at the clubs. And my son just kind of gave me this look. He's like, going to go look at clubs? And I said, yeah. He goes, I said, I'm going to go look at golf clubs. And he goes, oh, when did you decide to transition? He just roasted me right out of the gate. I died laughing. I was like, that was good. That was a good roast. Congratulations. And then my smart aleck daughter goes, oh, yeah, he got this salary job and he's hanging around with these salaried people. So now he's going to go play golf with all the salaried people. Like, they put me on full full-fledged burn, which, I don't know, I kind of enjoyed it.
There's some upset golfers listening to you talk right now. If anyone listening is an avid golfer, they're steaming at the ears, John.
It's fine because I affectionately remember my father. If he and I were going anywhere, like we went to the Osage River a lot and would put in right below Bagnell Dam to go fishing, right? Crappie would be hot there sometimes. We'd go crappie fishing. Sometimes we'd go fishing for buffalo. A friend of his, and I would go. I would go with him on certain fishing outings. Anyway, anytime we drove past a golf course and my dad would see somebody out on the course, he'd go, "Oh, look at him out there playing cow pasture pool." That's what my dad called golf. He had no use for golf. He loved being outdoors, but it was more fishing and hunting than anything else. So I, for years, would drive past the golf course, whether my dad was in the car or not, after he passed away. Look at them fools out there playing cow pasture pool. But now that I've met the people in my department or whatever in this role that I have, and these guys are going out and they talk about going out playing, 9 or 18 holes of golf, and they're having a great time. And I thought, maybe I shouldn't be so closed-minded. Maybe I should go give this a shot. So the other night, I'm sitting upstairs in the bedroom with my wife. We're sitting there she's doing something. I'm on the computer or something. And I said, "Hey, can I ask you a weird question?" And she's like, "Yeah, I guess. Okay." And I didn't say anything for a minute. And she's like, "Now I'm getting scared." I said, "No, there's nothing to be scared of." I said, "Would you mind if I just go out and bought a cheap set of golf clubs?" I said, "I don't want to spend a bunch of money because I might hate the game. But would you mind if I go out and I bought a cheap pair of golf clubs and tried to learn to play?" This woman spent 2 to 3 solid minutes contorting her face, trying not to laugh at me. And then she finally goes, "Yeah, if you want to buy a set of clubs, go ahead." I said, "I'm not going to spend a whole lot. I don't want to spend a whole lot. I just want to find a decent set of clubs, buy them, start practicing, and go out with Russell and Sean and maybe a couple other guys and just go play some golf. It's a good excuse to get outside, get out in the sunlight, just hang out with some guys that are cool and whatever." So, yeah, I just had to tell you that because you brought up the whole trans legislation, and my son just instantly set me to burn when I brought up golf clubs. So, but again, I was so proud. That was a proud dad moment for me because I love a good roast, even if it's me. Absolutely love it. So I was laughing and high-fiving people. It was a great time. Anyway, now that we've gone off on that tangent,
hey, let me read you a title of a bill from 1901.
Okay.
Here's how they used to do it. This is an act to repeal Section 8793, 8794 of Chapter 133 of Article 2 of the Revised Statutes of Missouri, 1899, and enact in lieu thereof 2 new sections to be known as Sections 8793, 8794, and to prevent persons and corporations from working laborers underground more than 8 hours in a day of 24 hours and fixing 8 hours as a day for such laborers. That is the title of a bill that they were trying to pass in the mines and mining section of the Revised Statutes of Missouri.
But from the title, you can tell exactly what they're doing. It's very cut and dry.
I 100%. Sorry, go on, Tom. Sorry, didn't mean to.
They're telling corporations that they're not allowed to have slave labor anymore.
Right. I mean, just yeah,
not to have slave labor underground. You can have slave labor above ground. You just got to keep it above ground, buddy. No.
Here's another one. This is under medicine and surgery. An act to regulate the practice of medicine, surgery, and midwifery and to prohibit treating the sick and afflicted without a license and to provide penalties for the violation thereof. See, in 1901, they went all tyranny on us.
Yep. Just real quick as an add into that, for any of you who haven't read the book "Murder by Injection" by Eustace Mullins, this book was written, I don't remember how many years ago. He kind of goes into the history of the beginnings of the American Medical Association and just the downright greed and corruption from within. Right from the get-go. I mean, talking about, oh, if you want to put a new medicine in our journal, you better fork over some dough, Jack, and a myriad of other things. It's a great book. Just in the beginning stages of the book on the history of the AMA alone, and their thoughts or their reasoning behind coming up with having to have a license and go through all these years of school to become a quote-unquote doctor. In their view, because they thought there's too many doctors out here and it was too hard to make boatloads of money because there's too many doctors wandering around the joint. And I mean, God forbid you have a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? But oh my God.
Did you say that guy's name was Useless Melon?
No, that's what I have on top of my neck. Eustace Mullins.
Oh,
I have the Useless Melon. He was Eustace Mullins. The word I was trying to think of is competition. God forbid you'd have competition even amongst all these people practicing medicine back in those days. But there are some very scary parts in that book. The man that had the iridium mine, who he found out, we can use these for irradiating illnesses, but yet every time anyone in his house would get sick, he'd hit them with a dose of radiation. He ended up, everyone in that house died from it. So things like that, because they hadn't figured out you can't just keep hitting someone with radiation and expect him to live through it all. But it's just some really, a lot of good information and some frightening stories in there where you're just like, you scratch your head and you go, it's weird to think when you think back then, how many people, I guess, I don't know if you call it the scientific process or whatever of doing experiments and studies to make sure whatever you're about to do to someone is a good idea. Not saying that we need the CDC or the AMA to guide the process through, because then it's way more costly and you just ruin everything. But it's just weird how many good remedies there were back then that now would be considered like witchcraft, probably, to some of these doctors. And then, but you also put cocaine in Coca-Cola. So, I mean, it's kind of 50-50.
Well, so would you let the free market ride out in that sense then? Like, given the horror stories, do you think we need a government regulatory board on
No. Look how
medicine?
many freaking medicines have been okayed by the FDA and then turned around and had to be pulled, like, was it Digitalis and some of these diet pills and all this other stuff that came out. I was on a allergy pill when I think it was about 16, 17. All of a sudden I developed seasonal allergies. Like, my eyes would just itch and burn and swell up. And then, of course, sneezing constantly, runny nose. So my mom takes me to the doctor, and they put me on a prescription called Seldane, I believe was the name of the drug. It worked great. I would get one cortisone injection, and then after a while, I just stopped taking the Seldane. I would go in May, I'd get one cortisone injection. Within a week or two, allergies good all year long, right? But apparently, if you took Seldane and drank it down with enough orange juice, it could cause heart problems. So they had to end up removing that off the. So yeah, how many things has the FDA approved that have been horrific. So I don't think having an FDA or an AMA or anything is really going to save a whole lot of lives at the end of the day because of just how corrupt these central planners are. I mean, look no further than the old COVID, and that'll tell you everything you need to know about how trustworthy they are. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. What do you say? What do you think, Tom? Do you think we are better off? I know what your answer is going to be, but let's just hear your spicy side of this on the FDA and the AMA. And do you think we're better off with medical tyrants running everywhere? Uh-oh, did we lose Tom?
No, I muted myself.
Okay. Sorry.
I do that at least once an episode. John's always like, "Hey, you're not on. You're not on." At least once a week.
I don't think we should have an FDA or any of those organizations at the federal level. I think if the states wanted to do it at the state level, they could ask the permission of the people if they could do such a thing. But I'm kind of open that what you do inside your own house is your own business. Just if you decide to do mushrooms or cocaine or heroin, whatever it is, just stay on your property till you're down off of your high, and then you can go wherever you want to go.
So you would, I'm not saying I have a, well thought out opinion one side too hard, but playing a little devil's advocate here, if someone if you had a doctor, let's say there's no guidelines, no FDA, nothing. You just it's all private, and you go to the doctor because of a reputation or he's shown you something where you believe in his version of medicine, and he's treating you he ends up killing a bunch of his patients. Would their families have recourse in that under assuming you can't assuming you can't prove he did it on purpose though?
Yeah, but he dispensed a product that killed somebody or done them detrimental harm. So yeah, he would be liable for that. But don't forget, at one point in time, Coke was called Coke because of the cocaine in it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just talking from a purely hypothetical standpoint.
Yeah,
libertarians like me get railed on a lot because we don't delve deep enough into the practical semantics of full on freedom.
Yeah, I think.
Well, I mean, there is a legal recourse. I mean, part of the problem that we have now with, if you want to go back to the life begins at conception, part of the problem we have with this whole thing now is that if you're involved in an auto accident and you kill a woman who's pregnant and then you kill the unborn child, you're guilty of 2 murders. But yet a woman can go to an abortion clinic, kill the same child, and that's okay. So we've got this legal ease issue that creates, I think, a thought process where people go, well, wait a minute, if one person does it this way, that's fine. But if another person does the same thing, just in a different manner, all of a sudden they're up on charges for murder. How exactly do you codify those two positions when what ended up happening was the death of, let's say the pregnant woman survives, but let's say the fetus does not. So the pregnant woman can get rid of the fetus, and that's okay. But if she's involved in an auto accident and the fetus dies, now all of a sudden you've got somebody up on charges for murder because that's not considered an abortion because she didn't do it. Somebody else did it for her.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a legal double standard, no question.
And that's what drives me nuts about, the court system, these laws that we have. It's normal government behavior, the double standard that that gets brought in on especially something like abortion. Like Tom, I don't know how many times I've been going down the road, here's something about how you have to legalize abortion. It's, it's a woman's body. It's her, her body, her choice, blah, 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 blah. And these politicians be like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. But if the same politicians can, now again, if you kill somebody's baby, that's murder. You should be penalized. But the same people that go, her body, her choice, will try to allow her to get an abortion. That's perfectly okay. But if there's an automobile accident, you kill the pregnant woman, survives, you kill the fetus that's growing inside of her. Well, now you can be charged for murder because, again, as Tom stated, she didn't do it, you did it. But they'll also put a bunch of people in prison when there's no victim. It's just the way they split hairs on issues. It's like, come on, guys, pick a freaking side. It's either one way or another way, or it's the other way. And these people are like, oh, I want it 4 ways. I can't imagine, like, if they ever come up with some kind of machine, computer, where you can plug it into these people's heads and try to, and then so it visualizes their thoughts on different topics. I can't imagine what it would do to my brain to try to sit there and keep track of their thoughts as you lay out something like abortion or something. They're like, give me your thoughts on abortion, and then you sit there or taxing the rich or whatever they want to do, and then try to follow as the computer processes the brain patterns and puts the visualizations on the screen. I mean, I think you'd have nightmares for months after you watched it, because it would be like watching some kind of weird Olympic Games where their thoughts are trying to cross one hurdle and go underneath another one and go around the next one. And you're like, you can't even run the course right.
Oh, what's the name of that? There's a sport in the Olympics where they do hurdles and then they have to go like crawl through mud and sand. I can't remember what it's called now, but yeah, it's like got some Swedish name, I think. But
it's
anyway,
like that. It's like
the
that
mental
mentally.
Gymnastics. Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, you see it every cycle. I mean, they do the same thing with the freedom with the First Amendment. Like they'll rail on Democrats for being against the First Amendment. You'll have the FBI working with Twitter to censor people. So you'll have the federal government oriented, censorship of speech. And then when the Republicans are in office, they'll put a bill on the House floor that gives you, years in prison for criticizing a foreign government. So yeah, true. I mean, the mental gymnastics of Republicans and Democrats when they're in office versus when they're out of office is, quite a sight to behold for sure.
All right, so we got one final bill here that I want to get into, and that is the gold and silver bill, which is HB 754. So it is going to hit. Listen, folks, I don't want to sound like Peter the pessimist here, but I am utterly shocked that this got through the House, through the Senate, back to the House, and is headed to the governor's desk. I don't know. Tom, what do you think? Are you shocked that this made it through?
If HB 754 is the bill that I'm looking at and gold and silver is attached to it, I'm amazed that people are applauding that it's attached to it and getting to the governor's office. It's got to be a different bill number than this one.
Okay, yeah, because I'm sitting here looking at it now, and I'm like, and I could have swore somebody had up. Maybe they put the wrong bill number up. Somebody on the Missouri Freedom Initiative page on Facebook put up, and again, maybe it says HB 754 just passed the Senate, gold and silver as legal tender.
The 754 doesn't even have the one I pulled up to look at, which is the Senate committee substitute, and maybe this isn't the finished version. It has nothing about gold and silver in it, nor would I even comprehend how they could put gold and silver into this thing.
Yeah, because 22 hours ago, somebody put Missouri's Constitutional Money Act, gold and silver, as legal tender, which was amended to HB 754, passed its final vote in the Missouri legislation this afternoon. But I don't see it.
I would not, if that's the case, and the bill I'm looking at, which is HB 754, I would not be proud that my bill was amended into this bill and it's going to make it to the governor's desk, because there's absolutely no way that gold and silver, as I remember it being written, can get amended into this piece of legislation and still make it meet the confines of Article 3, Section 21 and 23.
Okay, so
There's just no way.
So I pulled up the Senate substitute for Senate committee substitute for House Bill 754. I've got it up on my screen. I'm going through. I'm just kind of scrolling through to see if I see anything that. Okay.
33 pages, and I don't see it. But it has regulations in here dealing with credit unions, banks, people who are appointed as an agent for a payer or purposes for providing payroll processing services.
Yeah,
we have agreements for issuance of additional shares of capital stock or other classes of stock pursuant to the same procedures. A memorandum of understanding entered into with the Director of Finance related to bank safety and soundness. They would have had to amend the title. It's the only way I can think of that they could put that in there.
I see nothing. I'm at page 29, and I see nothing about gold and silver.
Yeah, because the title is about certain financial organizations. Gold and silver is not a financial organization. It's a manner in which you can pay your taxes, or you can use it as a form of money. So I'll have to come back and look at this bill tomorrow.
I see your comment in Jim Pellis's post. What a cluster F of a piece of legislation, although not exactly sure how they put gold and silver under the guise of financial organizations. Oh, that's good old Tom and his spicy commentary. That's why we have him on once a month. Spicy. Yeah, I'm scrolling through. I see nothing about gold and silver. And I went to, okay, let me pull up one other one. Let me see.
Just a sidebar question for either one of you guys, if you know. Has there been any rumblings in the Missouri House this year? I know it's probably not going to get passed even if there was, but I've seen other states signing bills for Bitcoin reserves. And I always just want to know if anybody's heard anything in the Missouri House, if anybody had been pushing for that or supporting that.
There's been push for it for sure. I know of people who have been working on just any type of altcoin type thing, but especially Bitcoin, Ethereum, others like that, getting trying to build something. They even had something for Bitcoin mining that they tried to do last session in 2024. It didn't go anywhere. I'm looking at the bill before the Senate substitution I still have yet to find anything about gold and silver.
Okay, Brandon, I'm kind of curious. Do you see, or do you view, or do you think, or whatever parameters you want to use, that the state legislative body should inject itself into a free market monetary system like a Bitcoin?
Oh, no. I think the state's governmental budget at the end of every year should be zero. There should be no reserves. It should be every year a completely balanced budget where the balance is zero. So they wouldn't have the money to put into Bitcoin to begin with. I mean, if they did have a reserve for like emergencies, it would be so tiny and you wouldn't have it lodged in Bitcoin. No, I don't think so. I just seen other states doing it, and I'm like, well, in a very, very practical, non-constitutional, not legal sense, having Bitcoin while it's rising versus having cash reserves mean you have more. You have something going up in value versus something being crushed by inflation. But at the same time, I don't think it's the government's business at all. And if you're using Bitcoin as a way to hedge yourself against the dollar, having the government and its currency tied to and tied with Bitcoin is defeating the purpose. Like if money in the market starts, if your crypto is moving the same as your currency, then you've already lost your purpose in your crypto. But that's my opinion.
Okay, so
you don't think that the state should have anything in reserve at the end of the year? You think the budget should be, and bank accounts should zero out?
I mean, enough to have, reserves for like an emergency situation, maybe. Although the government has proven that they're worse during an emergency than your neighbors are. So, I mean, you could make the argument that I think the government's budget, the state government's budget, at least should be balanced. Maybe outside of like payroll for police officers and certain things, but they shouldn't have like just a massive floating, general fund, slush fund in the hundreds of millions. No.
Oh, I would agree with that too. And I think if you're going to have some sort of fund set aside for what are deemed emergencies at the state level, those emergencies need to be well defined, and they need to be defined by the people. And no, I'm not talking about the people in Jefferson City, nor am I talking about the bureaucrats.
Yeah.
Okay. So Patrick Holland sent out an email earlier. Says, hey, gang, surprise. The Constitutional Money Act, amended by Senator Mike Moon to HB 754, was passed by the Missouri House 118 to 10 yesterday, 5-5. We are waiting for information regarding the governor's signature on the bill for it to officially become codified into Missouri law. We've heard the governor likes it very much and is looking forward to signing. After signing, I will release an official press statement about the bill. This is a massive win for the people of Missouri. My thanks to everyone who showed support for this bill by visiting the Capitol and talking to legislators, those who made phone calls and emailed legislators, and those who worked on the inside to get this done. But I'm still not seeing it. I'm looking at the Senate committee substitute. I do not see anything about gold and silver. I don't know what they're talking about.
Can it both be a huge benefit to the people of Missouri, yet also a detriment to the state constitution of the state of Missouri?
Absolutely, yes. But okay, I know people are going to take this as me being, again, a pessimist. Can we? Maybe I am. Maybe I'm just a tool. Maybe I'm just a douche canoe for feeling this way. Do I want gold and silver in Missouri? Of course I do. It's a constitutional money. It's constitutional money, right? Of course I want it. But do I want it attached to a bill with that has financial institution pasted in there like 72 times? I help me, Tom. Help me, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope. I still don't see anything about gold and silver in the Senate committee substitute. I don't see anything.
The Senate committee substitute was probably amended again. So when they update tomorrow, you may find it. But, if you're going to get something done, I prefer it be done within the confines of the state constitution. Because if it's not going to be done within the confines of the state constitution, all you do is open yourself up to have that taken right to the Black Robe Masters for them to go, well, I don't really think that this goes with this, goes with this, goes with this, ergo start all over again. And I blame that on our legislators. I don't blame it on Patrick. I don't blame it on, the people who have worked so hard to get gold and silver passed in the state of Missouri. This is a legislative problem. They have decided and they have determined that it wasn't that important to them. So let's find something that we can vaguely say, well, gold and silver fits into here, so let's amend it over here. And then we may have to deal with the repercussions later.
I have to ask: is that really the best course of action? Again, to hope that the courts that we harp on all the time aren't going to turn around and screw this up.
Well, I've been reading. I don't know why I went back, but I went back and started reading more Lysander Spooner. It's like, you see in every legislative session, we're going to go to the courts, the very branch of government that exist because of the other two branches of government, to have them determine whether or not we can do something. I mean, I've been listening to Randy Barrett for the last few days on different YouTube channels, and he was interviewed by Nick Gillespie. I watched him do some of these things were like 9-10 years old. He talks about what is considered a democratic constitution, and I don't mean the democratic as in the political party. I mean as in democracy as our form of government. And he talks about our Republican Constitution, not political party, but our republic, and how it is that it was to function. And we're so far outside the parameters of what a republic is, what a republic does, how it exists, what it's for. And all we do is we run to the government, i.e. the black robes, and go, please protect us from ourselves, or please protect us from so-and-so because we screwed up. I mean, one of the pieces of legislation that I told you that we ought to discuss is one of those, and that's the redo for Prop A. Literally, Jay Ashcroft could have stopped this in its tracks, because the titling of Prop A, which was the minimum wage and the one that deals with how many hours you work to get paid sick leave, this, that, and the other, the bill realistically has 3 subjects to it. Although the courts have determined that they don't really get involved in the titling of pieces of legislation. That's what they dealt with in their opinion. They just specifically said that, if the Secretary of State and the auditor sign off on this, it goes to the ballot and the people vote for it. That's democracy. We're not a freaking democracy. The rights of the business owner, the rights of the people who own these businesses, the contractual obligations that they have with their employees have been violated simply because we have determined that the voters get a say on how much it is that the employer is required to pay them in order to provide labor versus service, monetary.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember the name of I'm trying to remember what bill number that was where they were trying to, because the one bill that I saw on it, all it did nothing to negate what I remember reading. It did nothing to negate sick days. All it did was it moved the deadlines back to January of 2026 when things had to start. And I was like, well, that's not fixing anything. That's not reversing a state statute. It's just it was pushing the deadlines back on everything. That's what that's the bill. Go ahead.
It pushed the deadlines back, but it also, there was a section in there that dealt with the paid sick leave, which in reality, if you want to say the title of the bill is employee compensation, which is what they should have done with this constitutional amendment, well, then you can say that is a single subject. But what they tried to do with the, and I'm using air quotes here, the fix for Prop A, is they did the same identical thing that Prop A did. They're trying to amend the amount of money that you make per hour, and they're trying to amend your paid sick leave that you get to accrue based on how many hours you work. That's not the same subject based on the way that they titled it.
Mm. Yeah, I'm just
so. Yeah, so they could have they could have avoided it right there. Because they're like, you're 100% right. They're not the same thing. Negotiating minimum wage and negotiating paid sick leave those are totally different things in regards to employment. So
yeah, and you also have ex post facto violations and write a contract, because some of these employers and some of these employees are under a contract, and now you have the people went to the ballot box and said, we don't care what kind of contract you have. At this point in time, we're just going to tell you that contract is null and void, and this is the way you're going to do it. Nothing says authoritarianism like a bunch of voters going to the ballot box and dictating how much any business owner is going to be required to pay an individual that is employed by them.
Yep.
You know what's funny is you try to make these arguments into like the layman, and they just are like, "Oh, so you hate the middle class? Oh, you hate middle class? You hate middle and lower class workers?" It's like, no. And I get the same pushback because I have student debt. And every time they push through, or the whole Biden administration, I'm like, guys, it's a bad idea. I mean, what do you do to people who are getting new student loans next year? Are we just going to continually be forgiving? Like, is this the initiation of universal free education? Like, not like college? Like, is that what we're doing? Because you have to say that out loud. Because if you are forgiving debts for people who went to college, the people who are about to go are going to want that same debt forgiveness. And then, so what is college going to do? They're going to raise tuition. But I have student debts. So on paper, I would be one of the first people to benefit from student debt relief. But I'm like, this is not like, I made a contractual obligation with a private lender backed by the US government. So I owe the lender that money. It's just backed by the US. And so, yeah, I get into that argument all the time. We're like, oh, well, you must hate college, which I do, but totally separate is that like I must hate every form of college education. It's like, no, I just think that if you make the choice to go into debt, you pay that debt.
You know what gets me on this whole situation, and I've said this several times on this show and to people, anybody that brings up minimum wage around me and we talk about it. The people who generally back are the big backers of minimum wage also love to scream about racism. But minimum wage all started based on racism in states like New York, because these black laborers from the South were being brought up to do construction work. And so when they passed the beginning stages of minimum wage laws was to push those smaller companies with the cheap labor back out of the state. That's its inception. Not only not just that, the fact that you still have to have certain educational foundations in order to be able to deserve $15 an hour, right? You still have to be able to read, you still have to be able to write, you have to be able to do basic math, and we have kids in the poorest schools in this country who can't do that. So, in fact, they probably won't be able to get a $15 an hour job because they don't have the basic skills that would tell an employer, yeah, these people are acceptable to hire for $15 an hour. So you're just literally pricing the lowest educated people in the country out of a job. Congratulations. So something that was based in racism to begin with are being pushed by people who love to scream racism, and the same people like we're for the fighting for the middle class and the lower class. We're fighting for the less fortunate. They're actually screwing them over. So I enjoy every bit of this, watching these people flounder around back and forth.
Eventually,
well, I like
you'll
the
see companies.
hypocrisy.
You go on, Tom.
Go ahead,
sorry.
Brand.
Oh, I was just going to say.
All right, I'll say it. Go ahead, Brandon, and then Tom.
I kind of I lost my train of thought. You go ahead after all that. Sorry.
Well, it's the hypocrisy that gets me, though. If the Democrats want to forgive student debt, the Republicans say it's a bad thing. But if the Republicans want to forgive student debt, but it's for firefighters, it's for police officers, it's for this professional category, it's for nurses, it's for, first responders, it's for the heroes, that type of thing. Well, that's all well and good. We'll forgive that. But it's the same freaking thing. I don't care what your job is, whether you're in $70,000 in debt for transgender studies, or whether you're $70,000 in debt to be a firefighter, and $70,000 is $70,000, no matter which way you slice it.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish my brain could would be that athletically nimble to do the gymnastics that these people have to do. I would love to say that their brains are really muscular, but they're really fatty and flabby and still able to jump around all the hoops and somehow get themselves from point A to point B in a nowhere close to a straight line. And I don't know how you can have a brain that fatty and flabby and still be able to somersault and cartwheel through all the different things that you have to do to get yourself into that mindset that makes you, I don't know, so weird. I don't know. I almost want to go, wow, those people are really good, but at the same point, I see where they end up in their hypocrisy, and I go, oh God, I definitely don't want to be those people. Again, back to gold and silver. I'm with you, Tom. I just don't want. Again, do I want constitutional? Should we even have to put forth a freaking bill about gold and silver? No, we shouldn't. We follow the Constitution. Gold and silver would be the legal tender, right? That's what we base our currency on. We would actually have currency backed by something tangible. So if you had to have paper money, at least there was something. And you couldn't have any more paper money than what you had in reserves. But we decided to go. Nixon decided to do away with the gold standard. We brought in the Federal Reserve. We decided to just ruin everything with central planners. But I still don't grasp the concept. Okay, we screwed the Constitution over and got constitutional money, But then the next legislative session, here we are back arguing constitutionality of bills. And it's like, when do we stop? When do we just stop doing this? When do we stop wanting a victory so bad that we'll look past it this time, but then next year we'll go back to being on the straight and narrow again? I just don't want to do that. I want to be on the straight and narrow all the time. Again, you can't have perfection. None of us are perfect. I know there's people outside walking around all day thinking they're God's gift to earth, and they're not. Generally, if you think that way, you're a big turd. But I just, this is how we got here, and to overlook it because we want sound money, we'll overlook it this time, but then we'll stop overlooking it after this time. It reminds me of when the Tea Parties got popular again around the time of Barack Obama, and the St. Louis Tea Party's like, we're going to we're going to hold our nose and pull the lever for Roy Blunt, but we're going to hold him accountable. It's like, you didn't hold him accountable this whole time, but now you are. But you're the Tea Party. You're supposed to be the constitutional folks. But yet you haven't looked at it the whole time, but now but now you're not going to. Brian Wolfen's in the live chat. He says, I would have voted no because of the CBDC addition to the bill. So frustrating.
Oh, does he know we brought up his speech earlier?
I don't know. He might not have been in there at the time. But Brian, we played your speech on the sword.
Yeah, dude. We played you reciting Article 3, Section 21 on the House floor.
To that awful HB 176 bill. Oh, he's...
Well, wait. If he said it was amended and brought in CBDC, then it either is going to have to get another House floor vote, or it's going to have to go to a conference committee. I mean, the Senate can't amend it in a manner that puts something completely different in it that the House version didn't have, and then send that version to the governor. That's not the way that works.
Okay, that's very interesting. Hey, I want to interject here for just a second. Bryant just joined the stream. He said he's out till Thursday because of the birth of a new baby girl. So congratulations to you, Bryant. Congratulations on that. And Bryant saying he would have voted no on it because of and that's the thing. We still don't see he said they're pretty confident. He's pretty confident they did.
They can't. If the Senate adds an amendment into that piece of legislation that did not exist when it left the House floor and it went to the Senate, that bill in its entirety has to go back to the House to be voted on, yay or nay, with the Senate substitutes. And then if the House passed it, yes, it would go to the governor. But if the House disagrees with it, then it would have to go to a conference committee where there would be members of the House appointed, there would be members of the Senate appointed. They'd have to hash out the details, and then they would come up with whatever it is that they deem is worthy, and then each chamber would have to pass it again.
Well, Brian said he's checking right now. He said, let me check. And Patrick, looks like Patrick is also in the live stream at the moment. And it sucks because we got 7.5 minutes left to, God, I wish we would have, too bad Brian couldn't have chimed in earlier. But he's actively checking now to see about the substitute, or the Senate substitute on HB 754 to see if I'm going to go back and look again at the Legiscan site and see because I know it'll tell me, it'll say all the steps of what it went through. So let me pull it up again. And here it is right here. It's still there. I'll search again.
Yeah, because if it has central bank digital currency in it, then it's no better than the one that that they tried to cram down their throats last year.
Okay, so
that everybody was complaining about.
let me see.
Are you talking about the history? Oh,
yeah. So it says on April 1st, third read and passed Senate, ayes 20, noes 11. Reported to the House with the Senate substitute as amended. Okay, so it referred, fiscal review, executive session completed, voted due passed, reported due passed, taken up, House adopts the Senate substitute, truly agreed and finally passed, ayes 118, 10 noes, 15 present, House message. So it did go back to a fiscal review when it hit May 1st.
Okay, and it also went to the floor for a whole complete vote.
Yes. So it did make it through with that amendment on, with all the Senate substitute added on to the bill, and did go through all the steps. I did not see that. I was trying to find the text, the updated text, which again we're not seeing the actual language of gold and silver in. So I'm looking at Senate substitute for Senate committee substitute for House Bill 754, an act, and it says to repeal sections 361, 362.
But the next one that will pop up will be the truly agreed and finally passed version. So that's the one that has not been put online yet.
Okay. Because I was like, I do not see the updated version. So I'll have to go back and look at it tomorrow and see. Because, yeah, right now, as it stands, all I see is stuff on what we were talking about earlier, financial institutions and things of that nature.
Yeah, and I still don't see how gold and silver gets placed into a piece of legislation dealing with financial institutions.
Okay.
I mean, they'll put an estate planning with just about anything. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put. You can't put it past them. I'm surprised they didn't put gold and silver on the estate planning bill.
HB 176 went from 9 pages to 98.
They put 115 other things.
Yeah.
There
Not
is
impossible.
a piece of legislation that I think is dealing with something with health that has been there. One section has been put on like 15 different pieces of legislation.
Jesus.
So they definitely want to cram this down our throats, whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, that bill's trying to catch a ride to the governor's desk any way it can.
So, Brian,
it's on the side of the bill highway with a thumb out.
I'm just going to type it in the chat. He's looking for the bill again. HB 754.
It's weird. I mean, I guess it's still a couple days behind, but it's weird that it would have the details saying that it was truly passed on the House floor, but then have a different version for you to look at.
Yeah, they haven't updated the Legiscan site yet. The Legiscan site might be... I wonder if... Okay, we only got 3 minutes left. Let me go to house.mo.gov and see. And yes, the House did vote on the Senate subject. Yeah, Tom... Okay, so Tom put it up there for them to see. Legislative library. No, I don't want to see legislative library. Legislation. Let's go 754. Okay, so I want to see if it's on the here we go. Ouch, not the truly agreed and finally. Okay, that's Bill, or that's Tom in there talking in the live chat. House adopts. Let's see. Oh, that's just the roll call and okay. All right. Well, gang, we've got to cut the live stream off. I apologize. I try to stay underneath. It was Hardwick's bill. He's just they attached it to Okerling's bill, 754.
Correct.
So they attached it to Philip Okerling's bill, or Oler King's bill. Sorry, and that's where Mike Moon put the Senate substitute in to fill up Oler King's bill 754. All right, folks, that'll do it for this week's edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Again, thanks so much for joining us. To those of you on YouTube, yeah, I'll get to it. YouTube, Rumble, and even on TikTok tonight. Thanks very much to those of you in the live stream and those of you in the podcasting apps and MOLibertyRadio.us.